Today we're taking a look at the Lenovo Yoga 9i Gen 8. Now I did get to take a look at its predecessor, the Gen 7, about a year ago or so, and I was very, very impressed. So I wanted to see what has changed, what has stayed the same with this latest iteration, and see if it's still worth a buy for creators and business professionals on the go. And the Yoga 9i has always been a fantastic solution to creative applications due to its slim and light 14-inch 2-in-1 form factor that allows you to use it both as a laptop and as a tablet with the Precision Pen 2, allowing you to kind of take full advantage as a creator with this laptop. And with the latest generation of the Yoga 9i, Lenovo hasn't really touched what has worked for this machine over the last few years. The only upgrade they've really made is from the i7 1260p, so a 12th gen Intel processor from last year, to the latest i7 1360p for this year's model. So we get around a 10% performance uplift in multi-core performance with this generation compared to last gen, and that's mainly due to slightly higher clock speeds on this processor and slightly higher performance per clock. So on our previous generation 1260p, we managed a multi-core performance score of right around 9,400 points, and we did see temperatures get to right around 97 degrees Celsius, which did drop our core clocks into the 2,000-2,500 megahertz range. On the current generation 1360p, we see that 10% performance uplift to right around 10,400 points on Cinebench R23 multi-core, and we did see very similar behavior when it came to temperatures and core clock performance. But even at those high temperatures, fan noises didn't get super crazy. And in terms of battery life, even with this increased performance, we don't see a crazy hit. So it's right around the same 10 hours of battery life running the machine at 1080p video playback with the brightness at right around 50% of your max. And if you do end up running the Yoga 9i dry on battery life, a 15-minute charge gives you almost 2 hours of battery performance with their quick charge technology. Overall, that's really the only upgrade to this machine. Lenovo has slimmed down the product SKUs for the Yoga 9i, so they've eliminated the 1920 by 1200 display that you could get, so the full HD option is now gone. You only have the 2K and 4K version. And they've also eliminated some of the lower spec versions of the storage and RAM options for this machine. So now you can only get 16 gigs of RAM compared to 8 gigs, and you can only get the 500 gigabyte or 1 terabyte options for storage and no more 256 gigs. So overall, Lenovo has increased the performance of the Yoga 9i in two main ways. They've gone from 12th gen to 13th gen Intel, and they've skewed the product stack towards those higher end specs. But pretty much everything else about the Yoga 9i has stayed the same since last generation. We get the same design, the same keyboard, the same displays, the same internals besides that CPU. We get awesome fingerprint and face unlock with this machine. The keyboard and trackpad stay the same, and that is perfectly fine with me because they perform super, super well. We get the same port selection, the same cameras, the same speaker setup. So really the only things that have changed are those CPUs and the change in the product lineup. But that isn't a bad thing. This thing already performed super, super well in all of those other areas. So if all we really need to do is upgrade the CPU so we can get the latest iteration and the latest performance out of Intel, that is fine by me. So let's jump into what has made this machine so good over the last few years. And of course, one of the main selling points of the Yoga 9i has always been the 2-in-1 form factor. So of course you can use it in a typical laptop form factor like this, but where a typical laptop hinge would stop here, now we get this one to go all the way 360 degrees around to be used in tent mode or in tablet mode, fully replacing the likes of an iPad or a Samsung tablet that you would probably have to buy in addition to your laptop. And with the included Lenovo Precision Pen 2, it just makes for an awesome experience in applications like Photoshop, where you can take full advantage of this pencil or pen in applications like that. So, I mean, overall, you're pretty much getting two devices in one, replacing the likes of a tablet and a laptop, putting it all into one device, that makes for one, less things to carry around. It's a lot more portable to have a 2-in-1 laptop compared to 2 separate devices. And also, Lenovo has really made this thing one of the premier 2-in-1 devices in a couple of different ways. One is the hinge design, as you just saw. It's super, super smooth, and it has the built-in speaker setup in the hinge itself that allows you to have really great sound coming from directly in front of you. And the speakers are created by Bowers & Wilkins, and it's 2 3-watt speakers that make for a fantastic sound experience, which we'll take a listen to in a little bit. And also the other second one is the overall design, aesthetic, and weight of this device. It's really, really good in the hands due to these curved round edges of the laptop. So instead of grabbing more, of a rectangular edge, these are super smooth in the hand, and the lightness of this machine is really, really good. It comes in at just 3 pounds, and that's mainly due to the fully stamped aluminum bottom frame and CNC top frame. That one leads to, again, those really great weight of the device, but also a super stiff chassis. So if I'm pushing down on this thing, it is not going anywhere. It is extremely stiff. And that one leads to super good confidence in terms of lugging this thing around. If you're going to use it on the go, you want this thing to be extremely strong and durable, which it definitely is. And again, there's a lot of other great features that Lenovo hasn't touched with this latest iteration of the Yoga 9i. The keyboard is the same keyboard, which is extremely, extremely good. The touchpad is another great selling feature of the Yoga 9i just because of the size of it. It's not the biggest touchpad you've ever seen. It's definitely not going to compete with the likes of a MacBook or a MacBook Pro, but overall it is extremely nice for a Windows laptop, especially a 2-in-1 like this one. And it really complements the touch screen display well, being that you have this touchpad, you have the pen, you can use your fingers on the screen. There's just a lot of interactability that you get with this device. And from the keyboard standpoint, if we go back to that, the typing experience is great, and there's a lot of built-in functionality into the keyboard itself with macro keys and things like that. Over on the right side of the laptop, we have some dedicated function keys where you have a performance key to switch between performance mode, balance mode, and quiet mode if you need to save on battery life. You have an instant background blur mode for meetings, so that if you want to blur out your background, you can actually do it with the hardware on this device itself. Some volume options, some brightness options, and then you also have a fingerprint sensor down at the bottom of the keyboard. So you have a lot of different login options as well. You have the fingerprint sensor on the keyboard, and you also have face unlock on the device, which makes for a really good and secure device with some great security features. So coming back to the speaker setup on the Yoga 9i, like I mentioned, we have the speakers inside of the hinge on this device, but those are 2 2-watt tweeters. We also then get 2 3-watt woofers on either side of the device that are both downward firing and slightly side firing. So overall, an extremely competent and good speaker setup on this machine. And let's just take a quick listen into how that sounds. And for any of your video conferencing needs, you have a pretty good 1080p full HD webcam that does a decent job of auto exposure and autofocus, so no complaints when it comes to the webcam. And as you can hear, the dual microphone array also sounds pretty good as well. Now, putting the performance, the keyboard, the touchpad, the overall design, the 2-in-1 form factor all aside, the biggest selling feature for me for the Yoga 9i is definitely the display. So even if this was a standard laptop, I would probably look at buying this thing just for the display. So we have an OLED 14-inch 2880 by 1800 2K display, at least on this model, but you can spec that all the way up to a 4K OLED. That might be a little bit of overkill for a 14-inch form factor. You're probably not going to be able to take advantage of all of those pixels, but you get Display HDR 500 support, you get Dolby Vision support, a 400 nit peak brightness. Overall, an OLED running at that 2K resolution on this particular design and everything else, it's a really great feel. And you, of course, get that touchscreen aspect to this OLED as well that just really sets it apart from the rest of the competition. So the 2-in-1 form factor with this display, again, it makes it one of the best options out there for creative and business professionals, just because you're getting a super color accurate, bright OLED panel, along with the rest of the features that make this thing a great 2-in-1 right off the bat. Now, for me, there are two main drawbacks to this device, and they could be big or they could be small from your perspective. For me, it's somewhere in between, but the first one is port selection. So you get one USB Type-A and two Thunderbolt 4 ports on the left of the device, and then on the right, we get a microphone headphone combo jack and a USB Type-C Gen 3.2 port. So overall, there's plenty of throughput from the port selection on this device. Those two Thunderbolt 4 ports, you're pretty much able to do anything, drive any displays, get as much bandwidth from data transfer perspective as you could possibly need, but not everybody has Thunderbolt 4 cables or docks or anything like that lying around. It would be great to have an HDMI port on this display, maybe one more Type A port, but the one Type A port is good if you wanted to, plug in a mouse dongle or something like that without needing a giant adapter to go from a Type C or Thunderbolt port to Type A. So that is nice, but I could do for one more Type A and maybe an HDMI on this laptop. But I completely understand where Lenovo is coming from. You want to keep this thing as slim as possible, and an HDMI is definitely not going to do you any favors when it comes to the thickness of this laptop. And another Type A, that I don't know, but I think you could probably fit another one on here, probably on the other side of this machine. The other piece that is a little bit disappointing when it comes to the 9i is the upgradability factor. So of course, with the soldered on 16 gigs of memory, there's no upgrading your memory down the line. Lenovo again is doing that in order to keep this thing as thin as possible. Of course, as soon as you add a SODIMM slot on the main board, it's going to have to increase the thickness of your device. So Lenovo is doing that to keep this thing as thin as possible. So I understand it would have been also nice to have maybe another SSD slot on this machine, but again, it's only a 14-inch laptop. So in the grand scheme of things, with other 14-inch laptop competition, you're most likely only going to get one SSD slot on your machine. So it's not the biggest deal in the world, but overall, the upgradability factor on this machine, the repairability factor on this machine isn't the best. One of those SODIMM memory modules die on this laptop, you're going to have to replace the whole main board versus having to just replace the memory module. That is very, very rare, so I get it. But it would be really nice if there was some more upgradability or some more options for this machine. So coming back up to that 30,000 foot view, really getting an overall perspective of the entire package that is the Lenovo Yoga 9i. We get very few tweaks from last generation, but that's definitely not a bad thing. This thing has performed and been a great 2-in-1 laptop for the last couple of years, and if all we really wanted was a 10% performance uplift out of the latest generation of Intel processors, then that is a great addition to this already good machine. It would have been nice, like I mentioned previously, to get maybe an extra Type A port on this machine or an HDMI, maybe get a little bit more upgradability options on the internals. But overall, Lenovo kept what has worked super well with this machine. The display is awesome, being both either a 2K or 4K OLED, allowing for great color accuracy, great response time with that 90 Hz refresh rate, and overall just a great resolution options for creatives and business professionals. The keyboard and trackpad stay the same, and that is a great thing. The keyboard from Lenovo has always been fantastic, and the trackpad is nice and big, nice and smooth, and super precise. We get a great speaker setup, a pretty good camera and microphone setup as well for any FaceTime or video time calls they're gonna do on this machine. And overall, you get great performance when it comes to battery life with that 75 watt-hour battery and the quick recharge times that come with the battery as well. So overall, we kept a fantastic 2-in-1 laptop. We kept the features that make this thing great and really just added on to improve the performance of this machine. So you as a creator or as a business professional can really take full advantage out of the hardware that this machine has by allowing the software and the performance side to step up its game in order to match the overall design and overall features that this laptop has. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. And if you haven't already, get subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.